Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the OCD app. I'm Nick, and this is my channel dedicated to everything OCD. It's important to state two things to just remind everybody. First of all, everything that I say here is based on my own experience. I'm talking about OCD from the inside out, as somebody who has suffered from OCD and since I was 14 years old. I am now 46 and a half years old. So whilst I am not a healthcare professional, I have quite a lot of experience of this condition. And what I am doing in this channel is imparting my experience, in the hope that it might help some of you out there if you're struggling, because it is an incredibly lonely condition to live with. And that's really what I want to talk about here today, because the reason that it's so lonely, I have my notes here, which I will be referring to because my memory is appalling. I want to just briefly talk about the lack of understanding. Not in a stigmatized way, not in a judgmental way, not at all. But there is a distinct lack of understanding and about OCD, and part of the reason that there is so little understanding of it is because it is such a difficult thing to articulate, as I've mentioned before. Even for those sufferers, to actually articulate what what happens to them, particularly when they are having an attack, so to speak. And by an attack, what I mean is they are becoming stuck in a repetitive cycle. So the way that it tends to work, excuse me, I've got hay fever this morning. Excuse me. When you are stuck in a repetitive cycle, it is very, very difficult to release yourself from it. And the way that it tends to work is that you will be going about your day, doing the things that are required of you or the things that you want to do, and then suddenly something will occur that is a trigger, and it tends to be an action. And I had this last night because steadily over the last 10 days my OCD has been getting worse, stronger each morning. So last night, and all through yesterday, actually, it was quite bad. I found myself on many occasions during the day being stuck in a cycle of ritual that I couldn't rationally break myself out of, and that is the problem. That is the problem. Now, I know from experience that the important thing when you first notice an obsessive repetitive thought leading to an obsessive repetitive action, the first thing that you should do is to allow the thought to come in but not hold on to it, which is very difficult. It's very difficult, but it is possible. It's very possible. But it takes a little bit of self-discipline to do, because when the thought comes in, you are immediately struck by the discomfort that it brings. And it's an emotional and very physical discomfort in my case. And the repetitive action, the purpose of that is to reduce that uncomfortable feeling, which is basically anxiety. So just to show you very quickly, I have a watch on here. And last night I changed the strap on this watch. It has little pins, I don't know whether you can see them, but these little pins which you, with your nail, you depress and then let go, and the pin clicks into the hole. That action of the pin clicking into the hole, I couldn't disassociate a really awful, terrible feeling that I was harming somebody that I loved. Every time I let go of the pin and it engaged in the hole, I had that thought, and I had the feeling that went with that thought, and so I had to take it out again, and I had to try and just hold on to a thought that was not something that made me feel uncomfortable. But the problem was, it was the end of the day, I was tired. I just couldn't get anything that made me feel good. And so it took me about 10 minutes to get the strap on that watch, even though it just clicks off. I would actually show you it clicking off, but the OCD is so strong at the moment, I know that will start another cycle and I don't want it to. So when that happens, the things that I tend to do are breathing rituals and head shaking. I've never actually said that to anyone before, so that's a first for me. But I have a ritual whereby I breathe into my hand. The purpose of the breathing into my hand is to not let go of the goodness in me, because I don't want it to be replaced by badness. So I breathe into my hand and I shake my head, because shaking my head is a form of self-harm. But it's a very subtle form of self-harm, and therefore it doesn't tend to get noticed by the wider world, or you don't tend to alarm the people around you. Although that said, there have been many occasions during my life when I have. Now, it's quite an alarming thing to talk about self-harm. But the truth is that pain is a very good distraction from the thoughts. A sharp pain is a really great distraction. And so if you have been stuck in a cycle for, let's say, 10 minutes, and you can't get out of a room because you can't stop turning the light back on, because the thought you had when you turned it off was that somebody that you love dearly is not going to make it to the end of the day. Or another one, a more complex one, is that the disease in you, and by disease I mean the thing that is wrong with me, the dis-ease, the disease in me is going to, by the power of my negative thought, is going to infect, so to speak, someone that I love, and I'm going to pass on all of the badness and all of the trauma and all of the pain that this causes, and I'm going to, by virtue of my thought, I'm going to pass that on to somebody that I love. That's one of my worst ones. That's one of the ones that I struggle with the most. So back to my watch briefly. I then had to put the buckle in. I then had to buckle the watch up, and I couldn't. The action of putting the tongue through the hole and letting go, and then feeding it into the buckle there, all of that was actioning, as far as I was concerned, my thought into reality, my fear into reality, should I say, because that's what it is. It's fear. It's fear, it's anxiety, it's totally irrational, and yet as irrational as it is, and as rational as I am in every other part of my life, I was unable to risk doing that to someone else. So leaving it was not an option. And when I try to leave it, interestingly enough, what I get is a feeling around my wrist, a very, very strong feeling around my wrist, almost as if somebody is gripping my wrist like this. So it's not that you can just ignore it. There has to be something that breaks it. So I know well enough that what you have to try and do is accept that there will be a short amount of discomfort, but not engage with the thought. Once you have engaged with the thought, the discomfort is exponentially worse. You get stuck in the ritual, you get stuck in the spiral, it gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and the tighter it gets, the worse that anxiety feels. The anxiety created by the obsessive behavior that creates the obsessive thoughts that then needs the obsessive behavior, and so on and so forth. So there are certain things that you can do. There's one thing in particular that you can do, which is a breathing exercise. Now, I accept that in everyday life, going about your daily chores, it's not always, you're not always able to just potter off and do a quick breathing exercise. However, if you are in an OCD spiral, if you are obsessively turning on and off light switches or shutting doors or moving a towel or whatever it is, there's a pretty good chance that you're doing it regardless of anybody who may be around or who may walk in or whatever. So if that is the case, there is absolutely no reason why you can't do a very brief breathing exercise. And the reason that a breathing exercise is powerful is because what you need to do is calm your body down. Because the more elevated your flight-fight response becomes, the worse the OCD is going to become. That is my experience of my OCD. So I am going to just describe a very brief exercise, which is quite a good one, because you are dealing not only with fight-flight in terms of your body, you're also dealing with visualizations of your mind. And if you can have something that works both of those at once, then it can help hugely. So this is I'm going to just read it out because I'm just going to quickly go through it. It's a very brief exercise, but it does work. It requires you to just sit down and just close your eyes whilst you do it. But listen, there are few things that can determine how the course of your day is going to go if you are a sufferer of OCD more than a ritual you can't get out of at the beginning of the day, because it very much kind of sets your OCD level in stone. So the two bits of advice: first of all, if you can catch the thought, accept the thought and let it go. And by accept the thought, I mean accept that it's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. That is the first step. But if you're in a really bad place, you won't be able to do that. So if you can sit and close your eyes, take a couple of very deep breaths in and out, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And as you breathe in, fill your lungs entirely, and as you breathe out, almost push the air out. And almost push the air as if you're pushing it down through your legs and into the ground. And then in your mind, as you're breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, first of all, begin to slow your breathing slightly. The purpose of the inhale and the exhale are to begin to calm your body, not to begin to hyperventilate. So after you have breathed in through your nose and pushed it out through your mouth 3 times, begin to slow your breathing. And then I want you to visualize in your mind a cooker hob with a big pan of boiling water, and the water is in a rolling boil. That means it's not erratically splashing out of the pot, it's simply rolling in the middle of that pan, continually, powerfully rolling. And once you have that in your mind, visualize yourself turning the heat down by 1 notch. And as you do that, notice the water begins to calm slightly. Still boiling, but the roll has decreased. once you notice that it's decreased, turn that heat down one more notch and watch the boil almost decrease to nothing. And once you're happy that that's happened, keeping your concentration on that water, decrease the heat one final time. And notice as the water calms entirely. For a few seconds, just watch that calm, still water in that pan. Continuing to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Notice how still it is. Then I want you to take 4 more breaths in and out calmly. And then slowly open your eyes. Now, I would be surprised at this stage if you didn't feel in a calmer state. Hopefully that should help to alleviate some of the anxiety so that you can perhaps go about your tasks in a slightly easier way. It's a very simple thing to do. It doesn't take very long. It's not a fix-all, but it is certainly something that can help. So I'm going to leave you with that. Make sure that you go about your day remembering that everybody's carrying a burden and they're all invisible. And I will catch you next time. Lots of love.